Industry 4.0 ready. And to shed light on that, we have Nikhil Joshi, founder and CEO, SNic Solutions. Kindly put your hands together for Nikhil Joshi.
All right, good morning. Okay, a lot has been spoken on Industry 4.0. My slides may look like a summary, but I'd like to actually bring upon in the next 15 minutes something that I can basically add value in addition to what has been said. Just to give you a quick idea of who we are, we are a bunch of young, passionate industrial engineers. Our roots are starting from studying how manpower basically works in a plant. What do they do? How do we improve their productivity? And as we went forward, we became operations management specialists, where we said, okay, how do we bring in technology in the plant, whether it's scheduling, MES, etc. And finally, once we knew how to do all this work, we said, okay, fine, let's go and do this in different countries. And our focus has always been basically manufacturing plants and companies. At the end of the day, we are industrial engineers and operations management specialists and solution providers. So our roots have basically been in terms of, what should typically plant engineers, manufacturing engineers, industrial engineers, plant heads, what is their job going to look like, right? I know that you have seen 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, and what Industry 4.0 means basically, and we've been talking since yesterday. But from a plant point of view, what it means is basically that the degree of complexity has actually been increasing if you see in the fourth revolution. And that's the focus, that how do we basically manage this degree of complexity that is increasing. In layman terms, 20 years back, I could have this one shirt being produced on a line for 6 months, same white and pink, and that's it. But today, if you see all of us, we all are basically looking for very custom tailored, whether it's clothing, apparel, accessories, and that's the same thing happening inside the plant. The production complexity and the product variants are only increasing, and there's a need basically to use the same resources, okay, to deliver. So there was a survey done, and whenever we visit factories, typically the first question is asked, and I think even the previous presentation, the gentleman here was asking that how many people are actually adopted Industry 4.0, etc. Right? What we are seeing is that right now, if you basically go and adopt digital competencies, right, the people who are not doing it and the people who are actually going to do it, the gap is almost going to be basically close to 25%. Okay, but what are the barriers, right? What I would like to understand is that if you have to get ready for Industry 4.0, what are basically the barriers to Industry 4.0 that we are seeing today? So if you see the entire cycle, right from customer basically coming to you, you doing design and engineering, manufacturing engineering, production, and then finally doing after services, we typically see challenges basically in all these systems that we have today, whether they're software, etc. They're all in silos. There's a difficult, what is missing today as one of the barriers is that we have fragmented digital infrastructures, either basically, and we had a lot of presentations yesterday which spoke a lot on the right-hand side, where how raw data actually can come, how you basically make use of it. So I'm not going to cover, but connecting basically what we are doing in design and connecting what we are doing actually on the plant, that's a very big gap. And essentially, we no more basically as operations guys on the plant can work in silos. So this is one of the barriers. But the biggest barrier basically for Industry 4.0 adoption that we have been seeing is actually the skill. And this is what I want to focus basically in the next 10 minutes, where I'm going to bring a lot of Industry 4.0 applications that typically you're going to adopt, but how is the skill going to change? What are you going to, how are your jobs going to change is what I would like to focus on. So if you see, everything is actually becoming software, and every domain expert basically sitting here, at somewhere at the back of your mind, okay, if you are getting a feeling that, hey, now I have to do a lot of things with software, but I have not really been good at it always, right? Right from understanding code or etc., can we really do it? And this is the same problem basically at all levels in a plant. Okay, whether it is a machine operator, if you are telling him he needs to understand a PLM program, right? The first thing he's thinking is that, can I really do it, right? And we are having this, that the skills that are required for Industry 4.0 are very different basically from what we have today. So how do we basically make our workforce ready, right? So that's where World Economic Forum did a survey, where if you see that the skills in 2015, when they are talking about skills and competencies, they are not saying, do you know MES? Do you know basically machine learning? Do you know artificial intelligence? They're not talking like that. They're talking of basic competencies. So the competencies are complex problem solving, or critical thinking, creativity. If you see the ranking that has changed from 2015 to 2020, is that what you call things like complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, they have gone up. Right? So if you want to make your workforce ready, okay, the bottom line thing that has to change is that, are these competencies available basically among us, within us, as well as our workforce? And that forms a very good base, after which if you want to adopt artificial intelligence, MES, QMS, or any software technologies to bring it into the plant, this is the baseline foundation. And this is the biggest challenge, at least we have been seeing in the factories that we go all across India, where say that you are talking of all software implement, but we have already failed in so many software implementations. How are you sure that now when we bring these 4 other new softwares that you're talking under the banner of Industry 4.0, we are going to be successful? Yeah. So this challenge is basically a challenge of skill. So what I want to do is that as I go forward, if you see the building blocks, and I will focus more on just operations management because that's our specialty. We understand that domain. We don't understand design a lot. We don't understand after service. We don't understand sales, marketing, all those components. I'll only focus basically on the plant and operations. So if you see the building blocks basically of operations is that you have your efficient execution of shop floor. Then there is basically going to be an MES layer. It connects basically with ERP, planning and scheduling, your quality management, your R&D. All these basically put together are the different building blocks under Industry 4.0 for operations management, right? And the benefits basically that we are chasing is that how do we basically become efficient, agile, innovative, cost. We have already basically, a lot has been covered over 2 days. But now if I take applications and operations, let's understand what is the kind of basically skill. So traditionally, let's say we had to bring up a new plant, when we had to basically set up a new line. The traditional methodology was that our teams would basically do all calculations on an Excel file or a spreadsheet. Okay, and a lot of experience basically was required to bring whatever design team is telling into reality. But today, you can use softwares basically where you can virtually commission a plant before you actually go and implement. Now, this is basically known, but what is the skill changing here? The plant manager, okay, or the plant leadership, the industrial engineers, the manufacturing engineers, can no more basically just afford to just do calculations and say, how do I basically just take cycle time? They have to move from just calculations to be able to use these softwares and do experimentations. So the job description of industrial engineers, manufacturing managers is going to drastically change that can I basically use these tools and make sure that even if before the whole design and the new products go on the line, when the line is commissioned, when my production plant is commissioned, I don't have any surprises, right? So the job description totally changes when we talk in this fashion under Industry 4.0. we spoke about, sorry about that, I just skipped a slide. All right. We spoke about shop floor data, right? So data can be collected, you can be analyzed, all of it. But what is happening is that, as Subhash and previously the question was very greatly asked, that that domain experts are required, and Subhash identified that that was the gap. So when we want to bring these systems, domain is usually basically with the actual users, okay? And we are expecting the IT team to sort of be the coordinator between whoever is the person whom we are hiring as our system integrator, and assuming that everything will go fine. The skill and the change that is required is that the users themselves need to have some knowledge of IT. Without that, exactly telling how my user interface is going to look, which button I am going to click, then what am I going to do later? Okay, if the user does not understand this, okay, the IT team of the plant and then the solution system integrator will build something, and finally when you go and give it to the user, what happens? अच्छा यार मेरे को ये तो नहीं चाहिए, मेरे को दूसरा कुछ चाहिए था. You forgot to take this scenario into account. Okay, these are common challenges that we see, and the key foundational root cause is in the way we perceive today the skill of basically our people that we have and our workforce. All right. Data also has another problem, is that you would have existing ERP systems, MES systems, etc. One of the challenges we have seen whenever we go and implement Industry 4.0 solutions, whether it's production planning and scheduling systems, whether it's MES systems, they all say, our data is bad. Should we go ahead and first correct all our data and then implement these systems? Or should we basically, go and do this in parallel? One of the things that we got to understand with our implementations is that there's a very nice area which has been disregarded in most of our plants. It's like our nervous system, which is production planning and control teams. They are actually talking to purchase, sales, they're coordinating with everybody, right? But the way basically they have to work today is different. They can actually be a key enabler to all your data corrections. Okay? Why I say this is that production planning and schedules are very visual in nature, right? When you visually basically start seeing your data, you can actually start correcting your data very quickly. So we have a lot of customers who have given us feedback that when they started looking at the production planning and scheduling divisions, they were able to identify all the bill of materials they could correct, the raw material, the routings they could correct, etc. in their ERP systems. They could correct basically a lot of cycle time data, etc. So looking and correcting all this data, if it is done in silo, it's going to take you ages. But Industry 4.0 solutions, even MES, we had a lot of people come here on stage who spoke about taking raw data and making analysis. The moment you just start looking at that raw data, you will be able to see that you can start making a lot of corrections. But the skill required to do this, okay, is not to, there are two things that are basically very critically required. One is, what data do I capture? Because easily a user can say that, yeah, capture everything, I need everything. It's not practical. So one is what to collect, but the even more bigger thing basically that is required, which you need to adopt in your regular trainings to all your workforce, is how do I basically read the data? Okay. There was a fantastic basically presentation yesterday by I think it was Coaxis, who showed basically a bubble chart in terms of how plants are performing. But we are assuming that the users know how to read it. Okay. And that's where we typically see that when we go to plants, we have a lot of customers where we have said that, are you happy using the software? They say like, you guys have done a great job. I said, what is the effectiveness? And usually we see gaps there. And the usual reason for that is that the user who's actually using, he does not know how to use the system the way it is designed. And this is the skill gap that we see, which can easily be, which needs to be addressed. We spoke about flexible systems. So each of these softwares that we are bringing, this is an example where if you want your manufacturing to be flexible, okay. So for example, when we are working with automotive plants, earlier they used to basically just say that, hey, come and study all our methods okay, and tell us basically what are the cycle times, how much manpower you would require, etc. Today the need is different. Today the need is that, look, I am designing a line, but I need that line actually to be flexible. So if you see this video that is being played, this is actually a flexible line where conventionally you would have seen a line, you know, for basically each and every production type. Like, you know, if I talk about cars or if I talk about bikes, I would have basically dedicated lines, but flexible manufacturing speaks about saying that with the same resources, I can actually make any product, right? So the skill that is required to do this is to say that, you know, how can I look at all my products, okay, and design basically operations. So operations people would need to work with the design teams to design these flexible systems at the design stage. Once the design is done, if I then come basically on the plant and say that now I'm going to change, it's going to be very difficult, it's going to be very costly, right? So the plant head, the manufacturing manager, the design engineers, their skills have to become more collaborative. And to be collaborative, you need to use technology. All right. I'm short of time, but the same thing can be done in quality data collection. It also can be done on going paperless. I won't cover this because it's been covered yesterday in length, which is taking out paper and going paperless. Yeah, and the last thing I would like to cover is that thinking about one software will give us all, okay, is a big misconception, because you will get jack of all, master of none. So the future is actually in basically integrating best of breed solutions, okay, and maybe your ERP being in the center. So one of the key skills that we see is missing in manufacturing plants is the ability to understand how to integrate data. So if you look at an industrial engineer, if you look at engineers or operational excellence teams who are responsible for this data collection and knowledge management, there is no way they are going to be in future going to be able to do this if they don't understand what data is getting integrated with which applications. So this is one of the other area that you can use to measure and maintain accuracy. All right. The last point I want to very quickly cover, I'll take just another 30 seconds, is that if you have to start, there was a question asked that, you know, how do we create that industry roadmap, right? You need to start basically with business value. So in simple terms, since I'm short of time, if you are having business value challenges like your inventory is too high, on-time delivery is a problem, okay? Then basically look at your production planning and scheduling areas. If tracking, traceability, quality, if those are your issues that you are seeing basically as improvement areas, then look at manufacturing execution systems, IoT enabled basically data collection systems which basically give you analytics, right? If collaboration is a problem, sales team basically is telling something to customers, operations teams are doing whatever they're, and then you look at basically supply chain planning systems, sales and operation planning systems, okay? There is every tool basically is linked to some financial business value statement, and in your digital roadmap that you create when you go back, it is very important that as part of roadmap, when you say that we will first do SPC, we may second do MES, we'll do APS, you may come up with a roadmap of a slew of softwares, but you need to link that to that what is the business value we are going to get, what is the financial savings we are going to get. If that is not clear, there's a very good chance that even if you don't do it, it's fine. All right, so that was a small presentation that I wanted to give. It's already happening. We are already working with a lot of our customers both in India and in 10 other countries doing this, but we are starting small. Wherever software is needed, we are bringing them. We see a lot of change that is required in skills as well as process in order for basically the softwares to be adopted and used effectively. So thank you very much for your time. We are here outside in the booth. Feel free to talk to us, and thank you once again.
Thank you so much. I request Zain Retiwala from ETH to kindly come up on stage and present Nikhil Joshi with a certificate and memento as a token of appreciation. Thank you.